Whelan Presley and Van Ho Funeral Homes have been serving Quad City families and veterans for over 100 years. Whelan Presley is located in Rock Island, Milan, Reynolds, and Van Ho in East Moline, proudly supporting WQPT. Alternatives is a proud supporter of WQPT and has been serving our community for 40 years. Alternatives provides professional guidance to maintain independence and quality of life for older adults and adults with disabilities.
A consequential session. Iowa lawmakers end their 2023 session by fulfilling much of Governor Kim Reynolds' agenda. What does it mean for Iowans who live in the cities? Lawmakers are back home from Des Moines after a legislative session that focused on education reforms, protecting families, realigning state government agencies, and prioritizing spending. The decisions made, with most to be signed by the governor, will have both short-term and long-lasting impacts on Iowans. Assistant Senate Majority Leader Chris Cournoyer sat down with us to talk about what was accomplished and what was not. This was a heck of a session. The Republican agenda and a Republican governor that set it forth. You virtually did everything that was on your wish list for Republican control. A most consequential session.
Yeah, very much so. We were coming into this session in a very good position. We've had record budget surpluses. We've had great things going economy-wise, and so it allows us to really kind of go on the offensive in terms of things that we wanted to focus on, from tax reform to school reform, education reform, and other priorities that we've had that we haven't been able to accomplish up to this point. So yeah, property taxes was a big one, and I feel like we worked really hard to get a lot done.
One of the last things that was accomplished, of course, is the state budget, and you're looking at, I want to get the number right, about, 88%. You're expected to spend about 88% of the revenue that you receive in the upcoming budget, which means taxes will be reduced once again, and you still think programs will be adequately funded.
Well, that's 88% of the revenues that are brought in. So like I mentioned, we've had record surpluses. So we want to make sure that we are conservative and we are fiscally responsible, and using 88% of what we're bringing in terms of revenues. And we know our revenues are going to start to decrease. Those surpluses are going to start to decrease because of our tax cuts that we've implemented over the last couple of years. So we wanted to make sure that we had a sustainable increase in our budget and make sure that we are being responsible in how we do that. And make sure that it's sustainable, but also be able to pay for our priorities like education, public safety, healthcare, and transportation, and other priorities across the state.
Do you think that there will be ultimately the elimination of income tax in Iowa?
Well, I think the way our economy is going right now, budget surpluses have allowed us to cut taxes. We still have our rainy day funds are still full. And we've seen that the tax cuts that we've had, the income tax going down to a flat 3.9%, elimination of the retirement tax, elimination of the inheritance tax has only stimulated the economy. So I think that we are on a path to no state income tax in Iowa, and I'm looking forward to being able to run that, hopefully during my tenure in the state Senate.
Well, I think the governor made that a part of her state of the condition of the state a year ago, saying she wanted it within 5 years. I mean, you feel that's likely?
I think if we continue on the path of conservative budgeting and make sure that we're focusing, I think part of becoming more lean as a government with the governor's reorganization, I think is going to be helpful. I'm the chair of the New Technology Committee, and we're really looking hard at ways we can utilize technology to make government run more efficient. And I think when government's running more efficiently, I think that will benefit our taxpayers. So I think we can continue to run lean.
Let's talk about some of the issues inside the budget, because of course some agencies believe they should have gotten more. One of them, of course, is higher education and the three universities that they were looking for a larger increase to offset perhaps tuition hikes. We're expecting tuition hikes from the Board of Regents in June. Do you think that there was adequate funding as far as Iowa State and Northern Iowa?
Yeah, so I was the education budget chair the last 2 years, so I'm very well aware of that budget. Education budget is $1 billion of our $8 billion budget, and the regents have about $570 million of that budget. So that's a significant part of the education budget. They had an increase of $7 million. They had an increase last year. So and the regents, something they probably don't tell you is that they get money out of every single budget that we have at the state. They get money out of natural resources. They get money out of the infrastructure budget. They get money out of transportation budget, economic development budget. So they're getting money from a lot of different budgets across the state. They're getting federal money, and then they're sitting on gigantic endowments. I think the University of Iowa endowment is about $3.5 billion, and that money is supposed to be used for scholarships. So I'd really like to see how they're using those endowment monies before they start increasing tuition on our students.
But it sounds like it's likely about a 3% increase that's expected, during the board meeting coming up in June. Are you saying that it really shouldn't happen? It's not really needed?
I would like to hear from the regents how they're utilizing those endowment funds. I mean, when you look at how large some of these endowments are, I mean, in the Big Ten, there was enough money in the endowments across all the Big Ten universities where they could pay for the entire freshman class to go to school for a year. So that money should be used for scholarships. I know it's earmarked for other projects and initiatives as well, but they really should be utilizing those endowments, and they should be looking at ways that they can, run more lean as well. I mean, I think there's a lot of efficiencies to be sought at the Regent universities as well. And I have 2 children that graduated from Regent universities, and also part of the education budget is the college student aid, and we have continued to increase the money that is available to students that need money for higher education, so they can always tap into that as well.
The other biggest, as far as consequences are concerned, is the way that public schools are funded, and you're passionate on that as well. And we're talking, of course, about the voucher system, the $7,600 per student. How do you think that's going to transform local school districts?
Well, it's not a voucher. It's actually money that goes into an educational savings account that can be accessed by the student. So I think now we have total choice in Iowa education. Kids can go to the public school where their parents pay property taxes. They can open enroll to another public school. They can homeschool. They can learn online. And now they can go to a private school if they so choose. And it's not dependent on whether or not their parents can afford that. So I think we have total choice in education in the state of Iowa. We'll see how that plays out. We're going to graduate into it over the next 3 years. But I think when you look at it in other states that have implemented school choice, it still hovers around that 5 to 7%. So we've got great schools here in Iowa. My kids have all attended public schools. I'm the product of a public school, and my mother and grandmother were public school teachers. So I'm a big supporter of the public schools, and I think that we're going to continue to increase as we did this year. They got a 3% or $107 million increase to public schools this year. We're going to continue to invest in education and continue to support our teachers in schools and make sure that our public schools are great choices for our students to attend.
I think you put it well when you said we're going to continue to assess this. I mean, it is a program that's being phased in, particularly over the next 3 years or 2.5 years. What are you going to be looking for to find out whether this is either hurting local school districts or if it's a success?
Well, I think we're going to be looking at the numbers. I mean, something that's really concerning is if, a student chooses to go take that educational savings account and go to a private school and then changes their mind and wants to go back to the public school, how does that money follow the child? Because we want to make sure that the school where that child's getting education is receiving the funding, and we want to do that as on time as possible. So we're going to be looking at the accounting part of it as well as, just making sure that students who want to attend private schools are accepted, no matter what, if they have special needs or if they have special situations. We want to make sure that those students are accepted into the private programs where it's appropriate. There will be situations where the values of the school system don't necessarily align with the values of the student. We want to make sure that there's exceptions there, but I want to make sure that this is school choice for all students, not just for some students.
You were a former school board president.
Yes.
So you were very active in the administration of schools. You have seen parents come to school board meetings and perhaps misunderstand certain things that are being taught or are very passionate about other things that are being taught. Tell me a little bit about what you think is going on in school districts and school board meetings right now. Are you worried that a core group of parents could sway what the entire district does?
Well, I think that school districts and school boards and superintendents are very measured in how they approach these things. I mean, you don't always bow down to the group that's shouting the loudest. We, as a school board member, we're there to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars, but also ensure that all students receive an excellent educational experience that prepares them for post-secondary success. So I think that we're always looking at the curriculum, and we're always looking at the standards and making sure that what we're teaching really is focused on making sure that our students are prepared for success after graduation.
A lot of issues in regards to LGBTQ issues were before the Iowa legislature. Were you surprised to the extent of the laws and the bills that were put forward just dealing with LGBTQ or transgender issues?
Well, I mean, every year there's always a collection of those types of laws that come through, and you'll see that very few of them actually make it across the finish line. So, there were a lot of concerns from parents that were being expressed to legislators. They put forth the legislation, and it goes through the process. I think at the end of the day, we just want to make sure that what's being presented to students is age appropriate, and that parents are involved in the process and understand what it is that's being taught to their children, and they have an option to opt their children out of that instruction if they so choose. So,
well, you were a school board president. I mean, there's kind of this belief that teachers or school districts are indoctrinating students. I mean, did you ever think that was what was going on in your school district?
Well, I don't think it's very widespread. I mean, just like with everything, there's a few bad actors out there that might be pushing agendas, and those certainly need to be addressed, and they need to be addressed seriously. So we had a couple really good bills. I thought that one was House File 430 that really addressed those types of teachers, which are, they're very few, but they do exist, making sure that when they are dismissed from a school district for whatever reason, it could be indoctrination, or it could just be inappropriate contact with a student or whatever, but they are reported to the Board of Educational Examiners. Those reports are taken seriously, they're investigated, and then that teacher isn't just going to another school district to do the same thing. So we were making sure that we were closing loopholes, and I think that was a really important thing that we got done this year in the legislature.
But when I'm going back to you being a school board president, when you were a school board president, and it's local control, I mean, do you have a feeling the state is now kind of bigfooting on top of local school districts?
No, I think that the legislation is reasonable in terms of content being presented to students, being age appropriate, and making sure that parents are involved and they're heard, and they have the option of opting out if they so choose. So, really, I think, I would always tell parents, just you need to be involved in your kids' education. You need to go to student-teacher conferences. If you have a question on what's being taught to your child, call your teacher. If your teacher doesn't answer the question, call the principal. Go to the school board. I mean, be involved in your students' education. Have those conversations. We can't solve all the problems at the state level, and nor should we. They should be handled at the local level. But if parents do have concerns that they're not being heard, we want to make sure that it's very clear on how they handle those situations. It's very clear on the website, how to handle complaints, how to go to the Board of Educational Examiners, and how to make sure that their voices are heard.
The state of Iowa has been trying to lure, of course, more business to the state, and also to keep business here, to keep workers here. I know that there's been incentives. There are, as you pointed out, there's been a better tax climate here in Iowa. What else has to be done in order to make Iowa more prosperous as far as businesses are concerned?
Well, I think certainly working on tax reform to be more competitive from the tax aspect was one of the things that we really had to work on. We're going to go from being 40th in property tax to up in the top quarter now. So, and I think that was something that we were really going to have to work on, especially with the record assessments that we're seeing lately. Being more competitive from a tax standpoint, we see a lot of states that have no income tax at all. So we needed to make sure that we were competitive from that aspect, and then the retirement income tax as well. I mean, there's many people that are retirement age that can still participate in the workforce, and we wanted to make sure that they did that in Iowa. But continuing to, invest in our schools, make Iowa a great place to, live, work, raise a family, and that includes great schools, safe communities, recreational opportunities, things to do, and make sure that when people come to our great state, they want to stay here.
There were issues that are left on the table that weren't approved or didn't get through the process. Anything in particular that bothered you that didn't quite make it through?
Well, I mean, since I've been there, this is my fifth year there, I've been disappointed that we haven't been able to get something done with hands-free. The distracted driving is something.
And why is that? Because that just seems to, I mean, it seemed like this was the year.
Yeah.
When you're talking about hands-free, you're talking about using devices while driving.
Yeah, and Iowa has a law against texting and driving that really doesn't have a lot of teeth to it. So the Department of Public Safety and law enforcement has really come to us and said, please, this is a public safety issue. We see too many accidents and too many violations that we really do need to get serious about it. I mean, there's been a hands-free bill or hands-free policy in Illinois for years, and people know that when they're driving in Illinois, they put their hands down or their phones down. So, that's something that I'd like to continue. There's just a lot of, we can't seem to reach consensus on how far the policy should go. I think that there's enough technology now that people can utilize their phones while they're driving safely, but they're still just can't seem to reach consensus on what it looks like in terms of a state law.
The other issue, of course, was the pipelines, the buried pipelines, the issue of eminent domain of farmland. I was a little surprised that didn't really get any traction.
Yeah, well, it passed the House, didn't make it through the Commerce Committee in the Senate. I'm not on the Commerce Committee, but we have the Wolf Pipeline coming right through the district that I represent, and it was something that I heard a lot about. Now, Wolf said that they have never sought eminent domain, nor will they do so on this pipeline. But I think that as a state, we need to look really hard at how we're going to deal with issues like carbon sequestration and renewable energy and pipelines. And Iowa still has very strong protections for private land ownership, and we need to continue to focus on that. But I think that there just are a lot of opinions on what that looks like, and I'm not sure that the bill that came over from the House was something that was going to really address. It was going to be a Band-Aid for the problem, but I'm not sure that it was going to address the overall problem. So I think we're going to be continuing to work on that in the interim, and that's going to be another big topic next year.
You bring up the Wolf Pipeline, but it's just one of several either proposed I should say, or some that are under construction. I mean, it just seems to be an issue that's just going to grow.
Yeah, and it's something that we need to get some guidelines. I don't think that pipeline policy has really been addressed in Iowa since the 80s. So it is something that we need to look at. It needs to be modernized. We need to see how the Iowa Utility Board handles those situations, and make sure that we can't, certainly go put guidelines on in the middle of a process. But we do need to make sure that landowners are being treated fairly. When somebody wants to come on their property and survey, that they need to be treated respectfully, and they have the right to say no to that survey, and make sure that they understand what their rights are when these pipeline companies come through. So it's just something that we're going to continue to have to work on.
Iowa has a supermajority, of course, in one of the houses and a majority in the other. You have a Republican governor. How do you see this session? I mean, it was pretty much that, I don't want to say it was rubber stamped, because it certainly wasn't, but in a lot of ways, this is exactly what the Republicans want the state of Iowa to look like.
Well, you're right. I mean, having the trifecta doesn't mean everything is going to fly through. There's certainly a lot of opinions, and people that represent in the legislature from the eastern Iowa are certainly very different from people that serve in the western side, or maybe the urban versus rural. So I think that one of our priorities was addressing property taxes, and that was something that we heard a lot about. Especially when the assessments came out for next year, there were people whose assessments were going up, in the six-figure range, and they were really concerned about what that looks like in terms of what their property tax bill is going to look like. Now, when I was on the school board and Bettendorf's assessments went up, we were able to look at what our certified budget was and looked at what the new taxable values were, and we were able to lower our levy quite a bit. So that's what should be happening, and so we wanted to make sure that we put some guidelines in place. We were reducing the number of levies and kind of closing some of those loopholes that local governments are using to be able to increase those property taxes. Just because your assessment goes up shouldn't mean that your property taxes automatically go up. And we wanted to make sure that that was very clear to the taxpayers, how they can understand those bills and understand how they can go have their voices heard at the local level.
Last area I want to talk about is health issues, and let's talk particularly about mental health. The state of Iowa has really changed the way it administers mental health services. Are you worried about too many people falling through the cracks? And of course, once again, we talk about rural areas and being underserved.
Yeah, so that was something that was really important last year. We got the mental health levy off the backs of the property taxes, and it's now paid for through the state general fund, and it has built-in increases, which was really important. And something that we heard loud and clear was that the mental health reimbursement rates that for service providers needed to be addressed, and we were able to do that this year. So I'm really proud of that work. We're providing a lot of mental health at through the educational system, through the AEAs, making sure that there's mental health professionals to assist law enforcement, and that's just something that we're going to have to continue to address.
Because you weave it throughout all parts of society, and that you have to do something to make sure, once again, that people don't fall through the cracks.
Right, and you see it through the judicial system too. We have mental health courts that really help people who are experiencing mental health. Instead of going to jail, they can go and get the treatment and recovery that they need. And those programs have been just so helpful in our community. So that's something that, again, we're going to have to continue to address and continue to invest in to make sure that people are getting the help that they need.
State Senator Chris Cournoyer, Republican from LeClaire. Well, the weather is definitely turning summer-like as we get to enjoy all the city has to offer both inside and now outside. Here's Laura Adams with some great ideas if you go out and about.
This is Out and About for May 19th through 25th. The River Center hosts the Beyond Van Gogh Immersive Experience beginning May 20th. Geneseo holds their citywide garage sales May 18th through the 20th. And East Moline's Coney Island holds a craft and antique show on the 20th from 9 to 2. While the Rock Island County Fairgrounds is the site for the Quad Cities Toy Show on the 20th from 10 to 4. Fedgerberry is holding a Family Fun Day the 20th from noon to 3. The Run the Rock 5K, 10K, and Kids Run takes place on Arsenal Island on the morning of the 20th, while the QC Craft Beer Week kicks off and runs through the 20th. Mamma Mia continues to captivate audiences at Circa 21. The Nicewander Theater hosts 70 Years of Harmony on the 20th from 2 to 4. Richmond Hills Players in Geneseo is holding auditions for their upcoming shows at the theater on the 20th from 1 to 3. Polyrhythm's third Sunday jazz concert at Rivermont Collegiate performs the 21st from 2 to 7. Tomfoolery on Tremont presents comedian Aaron Naylor on May 21st at 7. Bass Street Landing hosts the Moline Thursday Night Summer Concert Series on the 25th, while Donovan Gustafson performs at Jenny's Boxcar on the 25th from 6 to 8. And May is Hippie Month with Bucktown Review on May 19th at 7 at Davenport Junior Theater. For more information, visit wqpt.org.
Thank you, Laura. 3 years ago, the drummer known as Dead Ginger joined us on the stage of the Black Box Theater for the original series of performances recorded by WQPT. Here's Dead Ginger with Clarity to Chaos. Dead Ginger with Clarity to Chaos, performed at Moline's Black Box Theater. On the air, on the radio, on the web, on your mobile device, and streaming on your computer. Thanks for taking some time to join us as we talk about the issues on the cities.
Whelan Presley and Van Ho Funeral Homes have been serving Quad City families and veterans for over 100 years. Whelan Presley is located in Rock Island, Milan, Reynolds, and Van Ho in East Moline, proudly supporting WQPT. Alternatives is a proud supporter of WQPT and has been serving our community for 40 years. Alternatives provides professional guidance to maintain independence and quality of life for older adults and adults with disabilities.